Our joints, the articulating or mechanical aspects of our musculoskeletal system, are moved by collagen fibers analogous to interwoven strands of a rope forming basically the means to push, pull, turn, rotate weights. As we see here, ligaments bind bone to bone, and tendons bind bone to muscle. Both are primarily 90% composed of collagen, which is, as mentioned before, the main protein found in connective tissue. So we have again, when we're young and healthy, the joints are silica rich, and as we age, it naturally depletes. Injury, overloading, poor diet, and of course aging leads to collagen degradation, which in body mechanics is manifested as limited mobility or load-bearing ability, such as difficulty in bending down, or joints become stiff. We are unable to carry as much weight as we used to, and or it can lead to worse, such as tendonitis, inflamed ligaments, etc. Our goal is to change that. Of course, referring to cartilage, we show ligaments and tendons, the kneecap, the spinal discs, that of course is cartilage. In this case, it is also a form of collagen. Cartilage is a rigid form of collagen. Cartilage is a type of connective tissue comprised of a matrix of protein, collagen, sugar, and chondrocytes. 50% of its dry weight is collagen, which is a flexible and strength component. As mentioned prior, decreases in collagen may lead to limited mobility or injuries caused everyday movement or vulnerability in sports and recreational activities. As we're learning, silica supplementation increases collagen, thereby offsetting decline in collagen levels, and is either a proactive or reactive factor in maintaining a healthy cartilage. I'm sorry to sound repetitive, however, it's important to show just how important silica supplementation is in improving overall body mechanics. Interesting enough, when we're referring to brain health, aluminum deposits, aluminum is a neurotoxin, as we see here, on which aluminum exposure creates neurofibrillary tangles, so to speak, the same twisted proteins found in brain cells when we refer to patients with Alzheimer's disease. Silica, uniquely enough, binds with aluminum to extract it from the body. Our bodies have antitoxin processes through aluminum is able to bypass them entirely. Unfortunately, it forms deposits in the brain and therefore decreases cognitive function. This is where silica is essential for brain health. Silica molecules bind with aluminum and enable the elimination of deposits from the brain through toxic waste. Research conducted by Alzheimer's disease specialist Dr. Chris Exley of the UK demonstrated a 70% reduction in aluminum after a short interval of silica supplementation. Research also demonstrated a direct link between aluminum and the body and the propensity for Alzheimer's disease to occur. What we can draw here, based on the studies, is that silica breaks the aluminum to Alzheimer's connection by removing the aluminum. Now you may ask yourself, how does it do that? Well, as you see in the illustration shown, this is a nerve synapse, which is the process by which a nerve transmits a signal to another nerve, and silica just so happens to help improve the nerve synapse. The nerve synapse is basically what can command to move your fingers. It can be a memory recollection. It can be an involuntary process like the lungs breathing. These develop plaque on the ends, as we saw in the previous slides, showing the MRI, which blocks a signal or slows the signal from processing over. By using the silica and bonding with aluminum, removing the aluminum, we're basically able to unplaque the deposits on nerve endings, allowing for signals to transmit clearly and much quicker. Now we step into silica and the cardiovascular system. As we begin to speak about silica and the aorta is healthy and rich in silica when we're young. Silica assures the elastic integrity of the aorta, leading to resilience in cases of increased blood pressure. The decline of silica with aging results in vulnerability to plaque buildup in the aorta, plus also weakening this critical pathway, leading to a higher risk in cardiac issues. So if we supplement with the right type of silica, again, the body sends the silica where it's needed. We want to supplement so that the aortic wall is as healthy as possible throughout our lifetime. In regards to silica and the immune system, the lymph nodes hold the body's highest silica content, about 45%. They are responsible for producing antibodies, including those that identify themselves as invader cells. Due to the fact that we want to maintain the highest silica content in our lymph nodes as well. High silica intake also leads to less swelling, as this is also controlled by the lymphatic system as well. So it comes down, as we've seen all the numerous benefits very briefly, what types of silica shall we use? Well, let's go the natural approach. Principal sources of dietary silicon are whole grains, fruits, beverages, and vegetables in that order. As we see here on this graph, we have beer, red wine, assorted greens, cereals. You have the silica content right here. How much silica do you primarily need? Well, we'll get into that in a bit. You might think, well, I can simply eat some cereal and get enough silica content that way. It doesn't exactly work that way. The issue stems down to the bioavailability of silicon for intestinal absorption depends on the solubility of the silicon compound. Just because, as we see here, beer holds 8.25 milligrams of silica doesn't exactly mean the body is going to assimilate that to being something we potentially need as food. See, smaller molecules or monomeric forms are better absorbed than larger chains or polymerized silica forms. So in the past, we were used to having diets with 10 times more silicon, and only 2-3% of silica consumed from foodstuff is actually absorbed. The reasons of this decreasing rate of silicon are as follows. The aggressive horticultural methods and chemicals being used today burn the microorganisms in the soil that solubilize the inorganic silicon. Consequently, both the soil and vegetables plus animals have a much less amount of silicon for us to consume. Not to mention, the 21st century diet often differs than that from the ideal, with refined foods instead of enough raw veggies, seeds, roots, leaves, and fruits. In general, according to the USDA statistics, more than 96% of Americans are not getting adequate intakes of micronutrients from food alone. That's based on the government's average requirement standard. That's a big percentage. With approximately 317 million people in the United States alone, this basically means that there are more than 304 million men, women, and children suffering from a micronutrient deficiency of some kind right now. That's crazy just to think about. A little scary if you ask me. Now, referencing on the recommended silica intake, as of now, there is no RDA for silicon for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Researchers who specialize in silica indicate up to 50 milligrams is needed, however, for European and North American populations. This might be the most important slide to discuss and point of view to selecting the right type of silica to supplement. We now discuss the historic issue with silicon. Russian researcher Voronkov, who is an organic chemist researching for 50 years, said, these compounds are insoluble or produce in contact with gastric juice, an insoluble silicon. In other words, silica is an oxidized form of silica which becomes bioavailable and can enter the metabolic circuit. Though breaking the molecular bond, silicon and oxygen involves a very strong link, as you see demonstrated in the formula below. In other words, our body needs to absorb a silicon plus an oxygen molecule. Silica, in other words, but it requires 200 kilocalories. That's an energy term, which is equivalent to 200,000 calories. Our bodies are simply not able to break it down, which is why most silicas are not properly absorbed by the body. And that is the issue when we come across questionable, cheap silicas in bulk raw form that are extracted from plants and whatnot, that the body cannot break down sufficient silica to be useful for the body. Simply, the human body is unable to break this link. When it detects an oxidized silicon, it is considered a pollutant, as otherwise previously mentioned, an invader of sorts, and therefore having the body expel it. This allows us to better understand the importance of the discovery of the molecular forms of non-oxidized silicon, organic and soluble forms. Silica is also available in some nutritional supplements with varying amounts of bioavailability, as previously discussed. In general, as we know now, the smaller molecules or monomeric forms are better absorbed than the larger, highly polymerized or oligomeric forms. This here is an independent research study done in 2007, which demonstrates the comparative absorptions of silica from different foods and food supplements. So what this means is, when you're selecting silica, dietary sources such as the beer, the raisins, the grains are very minimal forms of silica. Your body will expel what it does not see as a nutrient. It will treat it as a toxic, therefore eliminating it as waste. When you're shopping for silica milligrams is not an indicator of benefit. It is the higher grade silicas from proven sources that should be the most beneficial. Of course, those that have the research and specialize in it.